sit here.
I have to sit here next to you. All right, ready? Hi, everybody.
Hi.
What's your name? Who are you? Introduce yourself.
They say Dad's classmates.
Daddy's classmates?
Yeah, they say your name.
They say my name. Oh, my name is Mr. Ager.
Actually, my name is that.
What's your name?
Robert Ager.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Today's all about color and where the majority of colors we see or think we see come from. So, Robert, help me out. What are the colors of the rainbow?
Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, violet.
Purple, violet. Okay, cool. Are all those colors on that piece of paper?
Yeah, those are rainbow
So
colors.
is that all the colors in the world? Well, what color is Daddy's shirt?
Pink.
Pink. What? Where is pink? There's no pink. Where's the pink? Uh-oh.
You didn't draw it.
I didn't draw it right. Does a rainbow need pink?
Yeah.
No. There is no pink in a rainbow.
What?
So, indeed, where is the pink? So today's lesson is all about tricking our eyes into seeing all the colors that we see. And I guess we're not really tricking our eyes. Our eyes just receive light, receive the frequencies of different electromagnetic waves, and send those signals, and our brain actually does the tricking of ourselves. So we look at the spectrum here. It goes from red at 700 nanometers all the way, so red into orange, into yellow, into green, into a cyan, into a blue, and then we'll go into an indigo, into a violet, and then it fades into the ultraviolet. Indeed, there's no pink, and yet pink is absolutely a color. Here, let me show you. Bam, right there. Pink. Pink is not in the spectrum. So what the heck's going on? How come I can see pink, but there's no such thing as pink? Well, that's today's lesson. To start out with, we can turn on red light. So I've got three colors of light here. There are three sources of light. I've got a red source, a green source, and a blue source. Those are the only sources I have, and they're conveniently matched up to the cones in our eyes. I have a red cone, a green cone, and a blue cone. So if I turn on the red source, it's going to fire red photons at my eye, and my brain thinks it sees red. Likewise, if I hit green, turn on green, it fires green photons, and I think I see green. And if I turn on the blue light, it fires blue photons, and I think I see blue. Now, the crazy thing comes when I fire two sources of light. Up until this point, we've talked about if I activate my green and my red cone, well, that happens by when yellow light hits my eye, it activates the two cones. Well, it doesn't have to be yellow light, turns out. We can actually activate both the cones with two sources of light. I can shoot red and green light into my eye at the same time, and I think my brain thinks I see yellow. By activating my green and my red cones with red and green light, your brain interprets yellow. So we call these first three colors, the red, the green, and the blue, primary colors. So that goes in your notes there. Those are our primary colors of light. Now, art's different. Art has a different kind of color. It's called subtractive colors, and it's doing a different thing. But for light entering your eye, red, green, blue is the primary colors. Secondary colors are created when I mix two of those together. So yellow is our first secondary color, and it's created by adding red to green. So red plus green gives me yellow, and yellow is right in between the two. And so if I activate my red and my green cone, then I get yellow light. All right, turn them both off again. And let's jump down the spectrum a little bit. So what about if I activate my green and my blue cone? Well, if I activate my green cone with some green light, I see green. And if I activate my blue at the same time, oh, my brain thinks I'm getting light from both of these. They're both getting activated, so my brain thinks I'm seeing cyan. So cyan is our next secondary color, and cyan is made from adding green light to blue light. All right, and so that's it. That covers most of the colors, right? It covers red, yellow, green, cyan, and blue. But you're all saying, well, what about if I mix red and blue light? Well, first off, let's think back to our cones. That doesn't happen with sunlight. Sunlight doesn't activate our red cone very much and our blue cone. It does a little bit down here because the red actually does get activated a little bit with the blue, but it's only a tiny bit when you see violet, which is why that violet has a slight reddish, or purple has a slight reddish hint to it. But it never gets really activated enough to create a pink color. But with artificial light that we create, we can actually trick our eyes into seeing colors that don't exist in sunlight. Now, I'm not saying they don't exist in nature, because pinks definitely exist in nature. So nature takes advantage of this, of reflecting multiple colors of light away, causing animals and things to see different colors of light. So we'll turn on our red. Yep, sure enough, our brain sees red. But then if I activate the blue cone at the same time, my brain sees pink, or what we call magenta, which is not a color in the spectrum. Only way to see magenta, and there's actually thousands of colors that you can only see by combining multiple colors of light, by activating both cones, red, blue and red. So blue plus red, or red plus blue, gives me my third secondary color, magenta. So primary color, red, green, blue. Secondary colors, yellow, cyan, and magenta. Okay, so the next part of the notes are going to deal with first pigments. So what colors of light, and this particular light we're now only referring to red, green, and blue light. So the answers are always going to be either red, green, or blue when talking about the colors. And then when you say what color would you perceive, well, then you could answer red, green, blue, yellow, cyan, or magenta, or white, black. So once again, well, I'll go through that in a second. So first off, pigments. Pigment is the color of an object. Different pigments make things different colors. In this particular example, and the ones we're going to stick to, we have black and white pigments, and then we have red, green, blue pigments, and we have yellow, cyan, and magenta pigments. So if I take white light, which is just red, green, and blue light, so the three primary colors, white light, and I shine it onto an object, I want to know what color would reflect off of them. So if we do black, which one reflects? Nothing. Nothing reflects off of black. If I'd have a red object, then only the red. Green and blue are absorbed, red reflected. Go to yellow object. Well, with a yellow object, the blue is absorbed, but the red and the green are reflected off of the object. Green object, well, green's a primary color, so it absorbs the red and the blue, but reflects the green light, and that's why an object appears green. Cyan pigment will reflect both green and blue light and absorb the red. Blue object will absorb the red and the green and reflect the blue. A magenta object, or pink object, will absorb the green light but reflect both the red and the blue light. And finally, a white object is going to reflect all red, green, and blue colors. All right, well, then we get to a filter. So if I pass light through a filter, the filter both absorbs and transmits, allows through colors. So if I start at the beginning again, if I have a black filter here and I pass light through it, well, it's black. It doesn't allow anything through it. So it absorbs all the colors. So a filter is going to absorb and transmit, not reflect, the exact same thing. So black absorbs everything, transmits nothing. Red filter absorbs green and blue, transmits red. Yellow filter absorbs blue, transmits red and green. Green filter absorbs red and blue, transmits green. A cyan filter will absorb red and transmit green and blue. A blue filter will absorb red and green and transmit blue. And a magenta filter, pink, is going to absorb the green and transmit the red and the blue. Those are the colors that are going to get through. Finally, a white filter or clear filter lets through everything. And so what color would your eye see? A duck. Now, the last questions on the homework are going to ask you, what color would you see if you had a certain combination? So if I have white light, a red object, and a yellow filter, actually we'll say red filter, then my eye would see a red duck. If it was a, let's say, white light, yellow duck, red filter, my eye would see a red duck. Well, why is that? Let's look at, well, you have to follow the path of light. And this is how you do each of these questions. You start at the beginning and say, what color of light am I starting with? If I'm starting with white light, then I have RGB. All right. And then you go to the object and say, what color gets reflected off of that object based off what it is? Well, if it's a yellow object, then it's going to reflect the red and the green. So now I'm down to just red and green. And then I go to the filter and say, what colors get through the filter? RGB. Well, since it's a red filter lets through red light. And so the only color that ends up in my eye, despite the fact that I started with all three, is that red light. So you got to think about each thing, each of the three things, to know what colors get to your eye, and then say, what color would I see based off the combination of red, green, and blue. So if I have a white light, a yellow duck, and a red filter, then I would see a red duck. Kind of go back and forth through this. Think about all the things I just said with the table. If you want to fill in your table or just go back through this video. But you could use all those different things to figure out what color you would see an object based off the light you have, the color of the object, and the filter. So try that out. This one is kind of difficult. Do your best. And again, I'll post the key video tomorrow for this. You guys have a good one.